watching Let's Chat.
Well, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer is premiering this weekend, and the movie is already getting great reviews, and it's going to be showing right here at the IMAX theater at the Aquarium. Very cool.
It's very cool, yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show,
The
Tom.
pre-sales are through the roof, which is pretty surprising for a historical biopic like Oppenheimer, but I think there's a lot of interest on many different levels that makes this one of those highly anticipated films of the year.
So, a historic biopic, could you give us a little tease about what this movie is about?
So this was based on a book that was produced called American Prometheus, and there were two writers that did some exhaustive research. In fact, the book was supposed to be published several times, and the original author blew past those deadlines because he just kept finding more material and kind of reviewing all of that. So the book, when it was presented to Christopher Nolan, he was just sort of taken by the storyline itself. And I think for our region in particular, there's going to be some interest because I know at the Aquarium we have two folks on staff that have grandparents that worked at Oak Ridge Laboratories, which was part of the Manhattan Project.
Oh, wow.
Oppenheimer is focused mostly on what happened at the Los Alamos National Laboratory out in Alamogordo, New Mexico. But Oppenheimer did visit Oak Ridge, Tennessee on two separate occasions and was, helping with the research that ultimately produced the material for the first atomic bomb. And that happened at Oak Ridge. The Manhattan Project employed about 130,000 people nationwide, so it was a big project and had a number of layers to it. So I think this is going to be an interesting story for folks in our region in particular who may have connections to family members who actually worked at Oak Ridge, that secret city.
So I can imagine with his Christopher Nolan's skill set, it'll be fascinating to people that might not realize how fascinating this topic is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way he uses the cameras, because IMAX is known for those big vistas, which of course in New Mexico and some of the scenery there, but Christopher Nolan really got that camera up to the actors' faces so you could kind of get inside Oppenheimer's mind. And so you see these very tight close-ups that really fill the screen. So when those conversations are happening between the actors and the other, even sort of their thoughts in their heads, it really kind of reveals another layer. And Christopher Nolan and all the critics say if you're going to see this film, see it in the biggest format possible. So we're showing it in the IMAX with laser format with those two 4K laser projectors on that giant 6-story screen. So this will be a film that will, kind of be emotional at times. It'll be very dramatic with the special effects, but it also gets you in close and sort of an intimate portrayal of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb.
So it's entertaining, there's a local tie. Why else should people in the community go see this movie?
Well, I think that this is one of those films that in a few months, this is one of those that's going to be, get a lot of Oscar buzz because of the special effects, because of the way that the cinematography was done with the IMAX cameras, but also IMAX in black and white, which Christopher Nolan pioneered for this film. So there are about, the kind of these conversations that happen.
Wow,
so you see part of the film in black and white and part of it in full color.
I didn't know that. I know he's famous for trying to steer away from CGI and wanting like an actual explosion. What do you know about that?
Well, they did some of that, but he's very clear saying, yes, we didn't detonate an atomic weapon for this film, but the special effects, kind of take you there and put you in that emotional state because, it was theoretical physics, right? No one had done this before, and it was a race against the Nazis to try to get this atomic bomb before they did so they could end World War II. And they, what happens when we push this in a test mode? There were some folks that were worried that it would set the entire atmosphere on fire and end the world as we know it. And, so there was a lot of apprehension there. So this is a very interesting story with a lot of history that many folks may not be familiar with. But I think, again, there will be some folks here in the area that have connections to Oak Ridge that will find this extra fascinating.
Do you think this is an important time that, younger people follow the invention of the atomic bomb and how this all started?
Perhaps. I think that there were some discussions after the original premiere in Paris. People sat in the theater afterwards kind of having conversations amongst themselves about how they felt about this, how they felt about Oppenheimer as a historical figure, and sort of their thoughts of where we are today with respect to atomic weapons.
Have you had a sneak peek of it yet?
I've only seen the trailer, and it is intense. So I will say that, for some folks, this film may be a little bit too much.
Right.
But I
That's
think
true.
that you know, the subject matter would certainly lend that self to folks being aware of that. But I think from a historical standpoint that he was a really interesting figure, and he was also somewhat conflicted about what he was doing. He realized that it was important to, you know, defeat the Nazis, but it was also something that was going to dramatically change the way we viewed war and the world itself.
Well, Tom, you've really sold it as someone who might find a historical movie maybe a little boring, or history might be.
This won't be boring.
This won't be boring. It sounds like there's an emotional component of this.
I think that, yeah, I think this is one of those that people are going to leave the theater kind of being more introspective, perhaps.
Wow.
And having some interesting conversations maybe afterwards.
Well, tell us when it's showing and how we can get tickets.
Yeah, so it starts at 8 o'clock on Thursday. That'll be the first showing. Then on weekends, it'll be shown at 3:45 and 7:15, and then weekdays at 7:15, and this will be shown all the way through August 10th.
Oh, awesome. Right there at the IMAX Theater in downtown Chattanooga. Thank you so much for coming in, Tom. Go check it out, premiering this weekend, July 21st. Oppenheimer at the IMAX Theater. Thank you again for coming in. Love interviewing you. It's always a joy and easy. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.